the three most valuable of his SOPs, which are the setting up your infrastructure, ramping, and then putting in place a virtual assistant to do the day-to-day activities, day in, day out. So the playbook gives you the step-by-step instructions to get your infrastructure up, to help you with your messaging, and then to allow your virtual assistant to handle your cold email and LinkedIn outreach day in, day out, day after day after day, so that the end result, which is what everybody wants, is appointments in their calendar with pre-qualified people.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the High Level Spotlight Sessions, where we showcase awesome marketers doing awesome marketing. Today, I am joined by Trent Dyrsmid. He is the founder and CEO of Flowster, and he's also the host of a podcast called the Bright Ideas Podcast. Trent, thanks so much for coming on.
Chase, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So as a former ops guy, I'm excited to talk with you today. We had the pleasure of meeting at TNC, had a great chat. I love your background in this, mostly because I think you would credit most of your success to your ability to organize, create system structures and SOPs. Would that be accurate?
That would be spot on. As a matter of fact, I was at a dinner, or we call it Founders and Fire Pits. It was an event for a bunch of founders last night.
That sounds fun.
It was fun. And we had to introduce ourselves and name one thing that we're obsessed with that other people would find weird. And I said that I was obsessed with delegation, and literally like everybody laughed at me. I don't know if they got it, but I am obsessed with delegation because as a founder of any kind of company, the more you can delegate, the better life that you'll have, and the less you become the bottleneck to the growth of your own organization.
For sure. And I mean, let's dig into that because it's easier said than done for sure. But I do want to point out, as we were chatting before we hit record, your agency that you still continue to own, I was going to say run, but it's not really run, right? You just mentioned that you haven't actually really done much in the agency for about 5 years now.
That is correct. You can see behind me here, there's the Inc. 5000 plaques. One of them we ranked number 254 out of 5,000, and the next year ranked number 622. And while those are very nice accomplishments, and I'm very proud to have the plaques, I think what I'm more proud of is the fact that I delegated myself completely out of the company within 12 months of founding it. And my wife, she worked in it for a few years longer than I did, but she probably has not worked more than 2 hours a week in that business in the last 18 months. And the reason for that is really simple. We were obsessive with documenting our business processes in the beginning. And then we put people in place to use those processes to keep the trains on time, so to speak. And so now the company, which does a couple $1 million a year in sales, is a source of complete passive income for us. It's run by one half of a US employee. His other half, he works for my software company. And I believe the latest count is 3 or 4 virtual assistants. And so that small little team combined with those SOPs produces passive income for my wife and myself of a nice 6-figure income that we don't do anything for.
That's awesome. So you said that you guys were obsessive early on about documenting your processes. What does that look like? What do you feel like it's always been natural for you, or was it painful in the beginning for you as well? Because I feel like people who aren't doing this, when they try, it's like really annoying and hard. And
yeah, it's a superb question. And I've spent the last 6 weeks talking to agency founders as a part of some research that I was doing. And I think I talked to 16 of them, the last one today. And they all really struggle with it because they're either their brain isn't wired that way, or they don't know exactly how to do it, or they do it, but then they have issues with process compliance. In other words, like I made all these SOPs, but nobody uses them, in which case the program is a big failure. For me, I've built and sold a company before, and very early on, someone way smarter than me said, Trent, go read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And that book is just one big sales pitch for everything that we're talking about today. And that's when I first started drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak, of you've got to have processes for everything. And that was, like 15 years ago, something like that, long time. So it's gotten a lot easier for me because now I think about it all like every time I think of doing something new, I don't do, if it's something that's going to happen more than one time and it doesn't, and I don't want to do it more than one time, I will create a process for it as I'm doing it the first time, and so that the second time I don't have to do it anymore. Like a perfect example of that, we just launched this beta program that I was telling you about for agencies, and we do a weekly call. So the weekly call, there's certain things that need to happen before the call, during the call, and after the call. And rather than try and, just like run that out of my head every week, I thought, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be the one doing all this stuff. I just want to be the guy on the call.
Mhm.
So I opened up my Flowster software and I started setting up the meeting in Zoom, and I started doing this and doing that and doing this and doing that and taking screenshots of everything that I was doing and building my SOP as I was doing it. And now that I've done the call one time, my SOP, while I'm sure there'll be some iterations and improvements to it over time because there always is, but the base SOP is there, and now I can take it, I can assign it to my executive assistant, and I can say, yeah, go do everything to get the call ready, and I'll just show up when it's ready. So by investing
Yeah.
that extra hour up front, I've saved hours and
Well,
hours.
that's what I was going to point out is I think has always been the challenge for me is I know I should stop right now and start building an SOP as I do what I'm about to do.
Yeah.
But then I look at my calendar and I'm like, it'll take too long. I could just go do it and it'll be done in, a fraction of the time that if I
Yep.
actually document along the way. And then like you said, the third or fourth time you're doing it, you're like, why didn't I just document it the first time?
So that is a super common reason why people don't do this, and so
Mhm.
there is I have some medicine pills for that.
Okay.
Number one is when you get in the habit of doing this, you will have more free time to be able to do it. But that's not the greatest solution in the world because you're still thinking, yeah, but I still got to do it the first time, dude.
Mhm.
So the second thing is you could, if you wanted to, fire up like a Loom video, do the thing, and then send a Loom video to your VA and say, turn that into a process document in whatever app. Like in my case, obviously, it's Flowster. And then the other really cool thing that our developers are working on right now is we're going to come out with, and it'll probably take us a couple months to get it built, but we're going to have a Chrome extension where you can literally just, as you're clicking on the doing the thing, it's taking a screenshot every single time you click, so that when you're done, it's not a video, it's just a series of all of the screenshots with all of the instructions. So it'll be way faster.
Mm. Yeah, that's the rub of it, right? It's
Yeah.
like if you get in the habit of doing it, you have more time, but it's hard to get in the habit of doing it because you don't have time.
Yep. Yep.
So
Very
talk to
true.
me about, you mentioned Flowster. This is the app that you own, and Flowster is about building SOPs, right? At what point in the journey did you say, hey, you know what? I could probably, like, there could be a better way to do this, as opposed to, I'm sure you're just doing screenshots in like a Google Doc or something and like
Exactly.
doing SOPs that way.
It happened a little bit organically and a little bit, and then a very, very lucky sort of coincidence or situation happened. So I started off in Google Docs like many people do, and quickly realized that sucks for a whole bunch of reasons.
Mhm.
And then I started using what is now a competitor's app. And so, because it was built specifically for this task. And so that was cool. And then I got invited, as a result of the success of my agency, I got invited to speak from stage to, obviously it's pre-COVID, to a group of about 500 or so other founders in the audience. And I, because of my podcast, lots of people in my corner of the internet know who I am. And so the audience did. They all knew who I was. And I said, hey guys, nice to be here. Thank you. I don't have anything for sale. I'm just going to explain to you in great detail how I did this thing that I did and how I created, basically turned my whole SDRs over to people in the Philippines, and it filled my calendar with appointments and blah, 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 blah. So I fire hosed them with info for about an hour and a half, actually. And it was way more detail than anybody could possibly, comprehend and implement. But I just wanted to give. Much to my surprise, after the speech, I was mobbed, like literally mobbed by people coming up to me saying, and even on the mics in the aisles, I loved what you talked about. I want that. I don't know how to make it. I don't have time. Would you please consider just selling me a copy of your SOPs that you built for this Amazon business? And I was like, when the first person asked, I was like, well, maybe. And then, but after like person number 10 asked, I kind of clued in that there was an opportunity. And so we did a formal product launch, and we sold $400,000 worth of these things in the first week. And
Wow.
it was a life-changing moment for me, because I realized, like, holy crap, like, people are willing to pay real money for this. So that's when the software company was launched. I called my now co-founder, who's been a buddy of mine for a long time. He already sold a software company. And I said, look, this is what happened. We need to build a software company because we're going to keep doing this. And obviously there's a big demand for this. And obviously, if there's a demand for it in one industry niche, there would be a demand for it in all industry niches. So there's a tremendous opportunity. And so that's kind of how we got into it.
And so would you say that is sort of the magic of Flowsters? Not only is it like the tool to build SOPs, but it comes packed full of industry specific
Yeah.
SOPs that are already proven.
Yes, that is. We have the world's largest collection that I'm aware of standard operating procedure templates for digital marketers. I have other competitors whose software, they're backed by venture capitalists, and they might have a couple of extra features or whiz bangs or propellers in the software, but their template library sucks. And I'm more focused on developing my template library than adding more propellers and whiz bang features to the software, because I know, and yeah, we want to add all that stuff too, and we've got pretty decent features already, but I know that the templates, that's where the real pain is, because for what you just described earlier on is, man, I could just do it in 10 minutes. I don't have time to create it on my own. I don't want to spend the 90 minutes doing it. So I'm trying to remove that pain for all of the people in this corner of the world, providing a really extensive library of templates. And that's this beta program that we talked about, which that we launched the other day, is a huge part of that initiative.
So yeah, let's talk about that in a minute, but I'm curious to know, what would you say are the most popular templates for digital marketers?
So I divide procedures into what I call chocolate and broccoli. Chocolate is anything that is on the side of sales and client attraction, and then broccoli is anything that's on operations and fulfillment. And as you might imagine, people like chocolate a lot more than they like broccoli. So any template that has anything to do with chocolate is our more popular templates. So these are outbound marketing templates. They're templates for creating videos, creating content, social media posts, ad campaigns, all that kind of stuff is just naturally more appealing to people, especially if they're earlier stage, because they don't have a whole bunch of clients yet. But then as they get to start having more clients, operational issues actually become a real big deal. And so those folks become more interested in the fruits and vegetables, so to speak, than the chocolate.
What is you had mentioned before that the outbound SOP is pretty popular.
Outbound.
What does that look like?
So the Outbound Marketing Playbook was created in a collaboration with a guy by the name of Joe Petruzzi, who is a specialist. He works with B2B companies and high ticket sales, and he charges about $9,000, I think, for his program. And for that, you go in, and he has all these SOPs that he's built in Flowster, and he gives you coaching, and he does a bunch of stuff for you in his $9,000 program. What I convinced him to do was take the three most valuable of his SOPs, which are the setting up your infrastructure, ramping, and then putting in place a virtual assistant to do the day-to-day activities, day in, day out. So the playbook gives you the step-by-step instructions to get your infrastructure up, to help you with your messaging, and then to allow your virtual assistant to handle your cold email and LinkedIn outreach day in, day out, day after day after day, so that the end result, which is what everybody wants, is appointments in their calendar with pre-qualified people.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think most agency owners, especially the agency entrepreneurs early in the journey, would say that a calendar full of prospects would be pretty valuable.
That's what happened. Again, going back to those Inc. 5000 awards, in the first year that I was in the company, I'm a big fan of this idea of the genius zone. Stay in your zone of genius. That's where that's the thing that you do that makes you the most money. And so one of my zones of genius is closing people to buy my stuff. I've been in sales a long time, and I'm good at asking questions and blah blah blah. So for the first year of my Amazon agency, all I did was calls. And my VA team handled all the prospecting, and then essentially all these emails would get sent out, and I just dealt with the replies to all the ones that the VA team sent. And then I would convince those people to book appointments with me and schedule them and close them. And if you're the rainmaker in your company and you can spend your time doing just that and offload all the other stuff that happens before and after that, you will unleash the hounds, as it were, in terms of growth.
That's interesting. Do you have SOPs around VAs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have in our marketplace right now, we have an SOP that describes our specific process for hiring VAs. We've been doing it for 10 years. And there are just a couple of special little tricks that we do that make our success rate virtually 100%. And I've talked to a lot of people who've tried and failed with VAs, and a lot of it is because they're not setting up an environment conducive to success once they've hired a VA. But the other part is they don't really have the how to hire the right ones figured out. And so we publicly, like I say in our template, we describe all of that. And anyone who's a Flowster user, they can just go get that template for free.
Nice. So talk to me about what you're building now. You're working on a beta program again for marketers. You've got the outbound one already there.
Yep.
How does that differ from what you're working on now?
So what we're working on now doesn't even really have an official name yet, but we'll just call it the Agency Accelerator set of processes. And it's going to be a very comprehensive set of standard operating procedures. So the previous playbook is called the Amazon Seller Playbook, still exists. And that is a set of processes around how to manage a brand's Amazon Seller Central account. So there's probably 70 or 80 processes that are in that. That playbook is a portion of this big agency playbook. The outbound marketing, again, is just that playbook is a playbook that is focused obviously on outbound marketing, how to get appointments, how to get an appointment setter to get your appointments. So those two things exist already, but they're only a tiny fraction of what we're building between now and January of 2022. So the beta program, anytime I'm going to put a lot of effort into making something, I want to see if I can sell it before it's made, because I love votes that are backed by credit cards more than I like surveys. So I did do the, obligatory talk to agency owners one at a time thing for like 6 weeks. And it was very time consuming, very hard to get all those appointments. And then I did just a little mini product launch to those folks and all the other folks that follow me, saying, look, here's what I'm going to do. If you are willing to spend $1,000 with me today, and that'll cover you for like the whole year, and then you'll get 50% off the cost of Flowster forever, I will essentially invite you into this beta program for the next 90 days. You and 29 other agencies, because there's 30 agencies that signed up for this thing. That was the cap that we wanted. You guys will work with me and give me feedback as myself and my other industry experts keep building all these SOPs and putting them into this playbook. And then by the end of the 90 days, you'll have all of the SOPs that are in version 1 of the playbook. You'll have benefited because you'll have got a coaching call from us every single week during this beta period. And then, of course, you get the beautiful discount of like 80% off what this thing will sell for once it's built. And I have 30 case studies from my beta participants of how awesome it is. So that was launched just last week, and we did our first call today, our first coaching call, because we've got people who now have the outbound marketing playbook. So I brought Joe Petruzzi onto the call, and we just did a whole bunch of Q&A because people have that playbook. They had questions about it. They wanted to understand certain things. And so we just did live Q&A. And then next week, so the author of Duct Marketing, John Jantz, he just signed the agreement literally about an hour ago. So probably have him on the call next week or the week after. And when it comes to fulfillment, think of all the things like onboarding clients and project management, and all the stuff to do with like doing the stuff you're supposed to do to get paid for. He's got a huge library of SOPs for that his customers pay him 10 grand a year to get access to. We're going to put that stuff, or a huge chunk of that stuff, into the playbook. We've got conversations going with one of the major webinar providers about SOPs around webinars. I'm obviously talking to you about stuff to do with Go High Level. So the idea of the beta program is to really create something awesome that there's nothing like it in the world, and it will allow an agency to scale much quicker than they would otherwise do, because A, they don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
B, all the step-by-step checklists are there, which enables them to start making extensive use of virtual assistants from the Philippines, typically, but you can hire them wherever you want, at a much lower labor cost to get a lot of the work done. And agencies, any service business, your greatest cost is always going to be your payroll. So the best way to become more profitable, if you can slash your payroll by 70%, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. So John and Duct Tape Marketing are well known in the community. John was on the show a while ago, maybe almost a year ago. We should loop back with him. But that's exciting. I mean, they've obviously had a lot of proven success in the industry, have helped a lot of folks in the agency industry find success. So that's awesome. So the app is Flowster.app, right?
Yep, that's the URL, Flowster.app.
And where, if people want to join the wait list, because I know you said that the beta, you capped it at 30 and you already have the 30, right?
Yep. So by the time this airs, there'll be a page at flowster.app/APW. I'll put up a page there where they can enter their email and get on the wait list for the product when it's launched sometime in January. And if they want to get the Outbound Marketing Playbook now and they don't want to wait till January, they can also get that right away at flowster.app/OMP. And that you can get a trial and stuff like that. But then you would if you emerge out the other side of the trial and you want to keep using the software, you got to pay for it and all that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, before we wrap up, I did want to ask you one other question. How do you, for people who are, I'm hoping that this video will be kind of like the final straw for a lot of folks who know that they need to start SOPing things and just have been sort of putting it off.
Mm-hmm.
How do you determine where to start? Like, where do you always start first when it comes to, hey, the first, we need to start delegating. We need processes.
Yeah.
Is it in sales? Is it in operations? Where is it?
I'm going to give you a two-part answer. So the first part is start with yourself. So I have a checklist in Flowster called my daily routine. And as the founder of any company, there's just certain things that you need to do each and every day or on certain days of the week. Things like checking the financials, looking at yesterday's sales, were there any reviews left for my software? Posting on social media. There's just a checklist. So that's an easy SOP to create, because when you're creating an SOP for yourself, it doesn't have to be highly detailed with lots of pictures and big red arrows. It just needs to, in my case, there's a section for the stuff I'm going to do on Monday, a section for Tuesday, Wednesday, and then it typically just contains hyperlinks like check financials. So there's a link to my financial software. And check podcast downloads or whatever, and there's a link to that. So that's a really easy one to create, and then you can iterate it on it over time. And the reason that that's important is if you're not drinking the Kool-Aid yourself, you will not create the culture that you need to make sure that other people start following a process-driven approach, and then you'll have this issue we call process compliance. In other words, nobody uses all the stuff that you created. So that's the first part of the answer. The second part of the answer is think about the area of your business where you want to solve problems. And a lot of times it's a chocolate problem, client attraction, for example, more appointments, for example. So let's just use that as the example because it's a good one. Think about what are all the kind of repetitive activities that don't require years of experience to be able to do, and then document those activities. So a perfect example of that was for in our business was finding out what brands have products that meet a defined criteria. Okay, so we were easily able to create a checklist for that. Good, that was step one. All right, what products meet our criteria? And then step two is what brands make those products? And then step three was who at those brands is the person we need to talk to? Step four was what is that person's email address? Step five was send them this templated message. You don't need years of experience to do any of that stuff. You just need a set of instructions. Then the part where the experience comes into play is you get the reply, and then you got to be, all the replies are a little bit different. And I templatized my answers to a large degree, but there's still an element of finesse and salesmanship that's required. So that stuff's harder to turn into an SOP. It's not impossible, but it is harder. So don't start there because you'll be frustrated. Get your feet wet with the really easy stuff. So if you can turn it into a checklist that your mom could do with very little supervision, and it's a chocolate type activity, unless your agency's a little bigger and you're having more operational issues, in that case, like maybe client onboarding, like tick this in the CRM and create the Google Drive and get them to fill out this form. Like, none of that stuff requires years of experience. It's just a checklist. Do this and then this and then this and then this. Focus in an area like that if your agency's a little further along and you're already have got client acquisition figured out.
That makes a lot of sense. I like the idea of starting with yourself because totally, I have the same type of morning checklist. Like, get in there and knock out those 10 things on the list every day. Because, and even I'm always surprised that, like, even though you do it day in and day out for so long, if you don't go to the list, you always forget to do one or two of them. Totally. It's like, even though you've done it for like hundreds of days in a row, you will still forget if you're not just going through the list. And I think that's a big, you touched on, in my experience, a real challenge, which is getting people to buy in and adhere to the procedures. And so, we used to do like a Friday. I used to take an hour of my day every Friday to go scan through everybody else's lists and create a system of rewards for everybody who had kept everything up to date, and a system to deal with people who were falling behind. Because if you can get everybody on board and staying up to date and using, the guides and the SOPs, it really is, like, it's cliche, but it's like a well-oiled machine. But as soon as one person falls out of rhythm, it's like, well, none of us, we might as well not use them at all.
And that's where having the right software tool can help you a whole bunch, because you don't have to, just by the very nature of how the software works, process compliance, I won't say it just happens, but it gets a lot easier to manage because the software is doing a lot of that work for you. But you still need to have the culture, which is why, you as the boss need to be drinking the Kool-Aid yourself. I'm sure I have, like, I log into Flowster every single day. I'm sure I have employees that log into it even more than I do, but they all know that I'm in there, I'm looking. And if they're late on something, if I'm tagged on that something, they know that I'm going to get an alert that they're late or they're behind schedule. And that does a lot for process compliance.
Yeah, for sure. Nice. Well, Trent, thank you so much for coming on. It's Flowster.app again. And what was the waitlist URL again?
So the waitlist URL is Flowster.app/APW. And if they want to get just the Outbound Marketing Playbook that's already published, it's Flowster.app/OMP. Cool.
Well, thanks for coming on. I look forward to collaborating with you to get some high-level SOPs inside of Flowster as defaults. And we'll definitely have to bring you back in the future once you guys are out of beta and, rocking it out there with tons of agencies.
Chase, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and thank you to everyone who took the time to listen this far. It's been a pleasure to be here. And if any of you have any questions for me, my name is super unique. You can find me on Instagram. You can send me a direct message, ask me a question, whatever you would like, and I'd be happy to help you out as best I can.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for watching. We will see you in the next one.